The first rule of surviving a hit is simple. Don't be where the bullet is going. I'd broken that rule the moment I walked into Sal's diner. The air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and fried onions, a familiar comfort that now felt like a prelude to a tomb. I slid into the cracked vinyl booth, my back to the wall, a habit so ingrained it was muscle memory. The diner was quiet, just a trucker at the counter, nursing a black coffee, and a couple in the corner who looked like they'd been arguing since Kansas. I ignored them all, my focus on the man sitting opposite me. Frankie the knife Calabresi didn't look like a knife. He looked like a retired accountant with kind eyes and a slight paunch. But I knew better. I'd seen what those soft, manicured hands could do. "Leo," he said, a smile playing on his lips. "You look tense." "Cut the crap, Frankie," I said, my voice low. "You didn't call me here for a reunion," he chuckled, stirring a sugar cube into his espresso. "Always direct." "I appreciate that. It's why you were the best. Before you retired, that was one word for it. Witness protection was another. I'd been Leo the Ghost Moretti, the best extractor and infiltration specialist the New York Syndicate had ever seen. Now I was Ben Miller, a freelance IT consultant from Phoenix. Or I was until Frankie found me. "They're coming for you, Leo," Frankie said, his voice dropping all pretense of warmth. "The commission." "They know." A cold knot tightened in my gut. "Know what?" "That you talked. That Ben Miller doesn't exist. That you put Tommy the Bull Santoro away for life. 5 years. 5 years of building a life. Of pretending I didn't jump at shadows. Of trying to forget the smell of cordite and blood. And just like that, it was crumbling. The U.S. Marshals had promised me a new life, a clean slate. They'd promised I was safe. They were wrong. How? Was all I could manage? Frankie leaned forward, his cologne something expensive and woody filling the space between us. "There's a leak." "High up?" "Someone in the marshal's office is on the payroll. They've been systematically identifying relocated assets. You're not the first to disappear, but you're the most high profile." The world seemed to tilt. A leak. It was the one scenario we never truly prepared for. The organization was like a hydra. You cut off one head, 2 more grew back. But this was different. This was the shield itself being shattered. "Why are you telling me this, Frankie?" "You work for them." "I work for me," he corrected, his eyes hardening. "And Tommy Santoro was a rabid dog? The city is cleaner without him." "But the new regime." "They're chaotic, unpredictable. They don't respect the old ways. A war is coming, and I'd rather not be caught in the crossfire. Consider this a final courtesy for old times." He slid a small sealed envelope across the Formica table. "Everything you need is in there?" "The name of the leak. The hit squad they've sent. Their flight lands in 6 hours." I stared at the envelope like it was a venomous snake. This was a trap. It had to be. But Frankie's eyes held a strange sincerity. And if there was even a 1% chance he was telling the truth, I was already a dead man. "What's the catch, Frankie?" "There's always a catch." "No catch," he said, standing up and tossing a 20 on the table. "Just a head start. Use it well, Leo, or Ben, whatever you're calling yourself these days." He walked out of the diner, the bell above the door jingling cheerfully as he left. I sat there, the envelope burning a hole in my hand. 6 hours. That's all the time I had. I drove back to my modest suburban house in a daze. The neatly trimmed lawns and white picket fences now looked like a movie set, a flimsy facade about to be blown away. My wife, Sarah, was in the garden planting petunias. She looked up and smiled, her face smudged with dirt, and my heart shattered into a million pieces. Sarah was my miracle, a kindergarten teacher with a laugh that could light up a city block. She thought I was a former systems analyst who'd left a stressful job back east. She didn't know about the bodies, the money, the cold-eyed men I'd called brothers. "Ben, you're home early." "Everything okay?" she asked, pulling off her gardening gloves. I forced a smile, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. "Yeah, just a migraine coming on. Think I'm going to lie down for a bit." Her smile faltered with concern. Oh, honey. Go on up. I'll bring you some tea. Upstairs in my home office, I locked the door and tore open Frankie's envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No name, just a string of numbers, a bank account, routing number, and a list. Unit: 3 men. Alessandro the Shadow Volkov, interrogation specialist. Marco the Shiv Rossi, close quarters. Liam the Irishman, O'Malley, sniper. Arrival: United Airlines Flight 287, SFO, 8:14 p.m. Leak: designation Kingfisher, access to WITSEC database compromised. Volkov, Rossi, O'Malley. The commission had sent their A-team. Volkov was a nightmare made flesh, a man who could make a statue talk. Rossi was a whirlwind of violence in a confined space. And O'Malley, from 1,000 yards, he could thread a needle. They were coming, and they weren't coming to talk. I had to move now, but I couldn't just run. I had to know. I had to be sure. I powered up my laptop, a heavily encrypted machine I hadn't booted up in 3 years. The Ben Miller part of my life was over. Leo Moretti had to wake up. My fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing dark web portals and encrypted servers I'd sworn I'd never touch again. I used the bank account number Frankie provided. It was a ghost account, a digital dead drop. And there it was, the confirmation. Internal memos from the Marshal Service, classified personnel files, all pointing to one man, Deputy Director Robert Hayes. Kingfisher, a man I'd shaken hands with, a man who'd looked me in the eye and promised to keep my family safe. The betrayal was so profound it felt like a physical wound. A soft knock came at the door. "Ben, your tea." I slammed the laptop shut. "Come in, sweetheart." Sarah entered, holding a steaming mug. Her eyes went from my face to the closed laptop, her brow furrowed. "Are you working?" "I thought you had a migraine." Just checking an email," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. She set the tea down on the desk and put a hand on my forehead. "You're ice cold. And you're shaking." Her eyes, full of love and worry, searched mine. "Ben, what's going on?" "You've been distant for weeks." This was it. The moment. I could keep lying, drag her into the darkness blindfolded, or I could shatter her world and give her a fighting chance. I took her hands in mine. They were warm from the mug, real and solid. "Sarah, I need you to listen to me very carefully, and I need you to trust me. Everything I'm about to tell you is the truth, and our lives depend on you believing me." The color drained from her face. "Ben, you're scaring me." "My name isn't Ben Miller," I began, the words feeling foreign and heavy. "It's Leo Moretti. 5 years ago, I was a criminal. A very, very good one. I worked for the mafia in New York. I testified against my boss, and the government gave me a new identity, a new life. They gave me you." She stared at me, her mind trying to process the impossible. I saw the confusion, the denial, and then a flicker of horrifying understanding. "The people I worked for. They found me," I continued, my voice raw. "A hit squad is landing at the airport tonight. They're coming here? For me, for you." She pulled her hands away as if burned. "No, this is a joke. A stupid, sick joke." She backed away, her eyes wide with fear. "Not of the men coming for us, but of me." "It's not a joke, Sarah. I am so sorry. I never wanted this for you. But we have to go. Right now." The word "we" seemed to snap her out of her shock. The teacher, the protector, surfaced. "Go where?" "What about our life?" "Our home?" "It was never our life, Sarah. It was a story. And the last chapter is being written right now. We can either run or we die." I saw the war in her eyes, the betrayal, the terror, the primal need to survive. Finally, she took a shaky breath. "What do we do?" "We disappear. For real this time. No marshal, no system. Just us." I stood up, my mind shifting into a cold, operational gear I'd suppressed for years. "We have 2 hours. Pack 1 bag. Essentials only. Clothes, cash, your passport. No electronics. No phones. Leave everything else." While Sarah moved in a stunned haze, I went to work. I pulled up a floorboard in the closet, revealing a waterproof case. My go bag inside was $50,000 in mixed bills, 4 clean passports, a 9mm Glock 19 with 3 extra magazines, and a set of lockpicks and tools. The ghost was rearming himself. I then went to the garage and began disabling the GPS in our car. I siphoned gas from the lawnmower into a spare canister. I shredded documents and wiped down surfaces. I was erasing Ben Miller. An hour and 45 minutes later, we were ready. Sarah stood by the door, a single duffel bag at her feet, her face pale but resolute. She looked at the gun tucked into my waistband, and a fresh wave of fear crossed her face. "You'll never have to see me use it," I promised, though I knew it was a promise I might not be able to keep. We took her car, an old, nondescript Honda Civic I'd insisted on buying for its anonymity. I drove, my eyes constantly scanning the mirrors. We weren't heading for the highway. That's where they'd expect us to go. Instead, I navigated a labyrinth of side streets, heading for the long-term parking lot at the BART station. We abandoned the car there and walked 6 blocks to a used car dealership. That didn't ask questions if you paid in cash. 30 minutes later, we were driving a 10-year-old Toyota Camry with 250,000 miles on it. Heading south on the 101, the sun was beginning to set, casting long, distorted shadows. We had a head start, but Volkov and his team would be on the ground now. They'd find the house empty. They'd be angry, and they'd start hunting. "Where are we going?" Sarah asked, her voice small from the passenger seat. "Somewhere they won't look," I said. "We're going to Las Vegas." "Vegas? They'll look for us in Vegas." "Exactly. It's a city of cameras and noise, the last place a fugitive would hide, which is why it's perfect. We need to get lost in the crowd, and then we need to find a way to disappear forever." The drive was tense and silent. Sarah stared out the window, lost in her thoughts. I knew I had broken her. The man she loved was a phantom, and the life they'd built was a lie. The trust between us was fractured, maybe irreparably. We drove through the night, switching license plates with a similar model in a rest stop parking lot. I paid for everything with cash. We slept for a few fitful hours in a motel that charged by the hour, the sounds of the city a constant, unnerving hum. In Vegas, we checked into a low-rent casino off the Strip, the kind of place where people went to truly vanish. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and desperation. I rented the room under one of the fake passports, paying for a week in advance. For 2 days, we stayed in the room, living on takeout. I used public libraries and stolen Wi-Fi signals to continue my research. Kingfisher, Robert Hayes, I needed leverage. I needed to know why. On the 3rd day, I found it. Buried in a series of offshore accounts was a money trail. Millions. Siphoned from WITSEC operational funds and funneled through shell companies, all leading back to a shell corporation owned by the new head of the commission, Vincent the Viper Abundando. Hayes wasn't just on the payroll. He was a major investor in his own betrayal. But knowing and proving were 2 different things. I was a ghost, a non-person. I couldn't exactly walk into the FBI and make a statement. "So what's the plan, Leo?" Sarah asked that evening. She'd started using my real name, and each time she did, it felt like a small knife twist. "We can't stay here forever." "This money won't last forever." "I know," I said, staring at the flickering neon sign outside our window. "We can't just run. They'll always find us. We have to end this." "End it? How?" "You're one man." "I was always one man," I said, a plan beginning to form in my mind, cold, ruthless, and desperate. That was always enough. "We're not running from them anymore. We're going to make them run from us." I explained the outline to her. It was insane, suicidal. We were going to bait the most powerful criminal organization in the country and a corrupt, high-ranking U.S. Marshal. "You're going to get us killed," she whispered, her face horrified. "Staying hidden will get us killed," I countered. "This is the only way. We turn their weapons against them. We make the leak useless." The first step was to draw out Kingfisher. I needed him to confirm the hit was active, to panic. Using a burner phone from a dead cartel member, I sent a single, encrypted message to a number I knew Hayes monitored. Asterisk, the package is compromised. The asset is active and aware. Volkov team has been made. Abundando is furious. The kingfisher must secure the nest or be plucked. Asterisk. It was a mess of code and implication, designed to sound like it came from within the organization. It told Hayes that his betrayal was known, that the hit had failed, and that the mob boss was blaming him. Then I went after the hit squad. I knew how they worked. They'd be methodical, checking my known aliases, my old haunts. So I gave them a gift. Using a different identity, I booked a single, first-class train ticket from Las Vegas to New Orleans under the name L. Moretti. It was a blatant, arrogant trail. They'd see it as me getting sloppy, desperate to get my wife out of the country, maybe through the port of New Orleans. I knew Volkov would take the bait. He was a predator, and predators chase movement. He would send O'Malley, the sniper, to the station to take the shot as I boarded the train. Rossi would probably be nearby for cleanup. That left Volkov himself, the most dangerous of the three, likely manning their operational base. While they were focused on the train station, Sarah and I were going to their base. I'd used my old contacts and some digital sleuthing to triangulate their location to a short-term rental property in a quiet, affluent suburb, the perfect place to avoid suspicion. The night of the train departure, the air in Vegas was electric with tension. Sarah and I were dressed in dark, nondescript clothing. I checked the Glock one last time. "You don't have to do this part," I told her. "You can wait in the car?" She shook her head, her jaw set. "This is my life too now." "I'm not waiting in the car." We drove to the rental house. It was dark and quiet. A rental SUV was in the driveway. This was it. Volkov was inside. I disabled the external security cameras with a quick spray of black paint. We moved to the back door. The lock was a standard deadbolt. It took me 12 seconds to pick it. We slipped inside. The house was immaculate except for one room. The dining room had been converted into a command center. Laptops, listening devices, and a large map of the city were spread across the table. And there he was, Alessandro Volkov, his back to us, watching a live feed from the train station on one of the laptops. He was a big man, with a quiet stillness that was more intimidating than any show of force. He must have sensed a shift in the air, seen a reflection in the dark screen. He started to turn, his hand moving towards a pistol on the table. "Don't," I said, leveling my Glock at the center of his back. He froze, then slowly raised his hands. "Leo Moretti," he said, his voice a low, accented rumble. "The ghost. I should have known a station was too obvious. Where are Rossi and O'Malley?" I demanded. "Where you led them." "They're waiting for a ghost." He began to turn slowly. "You have made a very big mistake coming here." "The mistake was taking this contract," I said, my finger resting on the trigger guard. It was then that Sarah, who had been covering the hallway, gasped. I risked a glance. Liam O'Malley was standing in the doorway, a suppressed pistol in his hand. He hadn't gone to the station. Volkov was smarter than I'd given him credit for. He'd anticipated a countermove. "The mistake," Volkov said, a cruel smile finally touching his lips, "was bringing your wife." The world exploded into violence. O'Malley fired. The bullet meant for me whizzed past my ear. I dropped to a crouch and returned fire. 2 quick shots that forced O'Malley back into the hallway. At the same time, Volkov lunged for his gun on the table. I was caught between 2 targets. I swung my aim back to Volkov, but I was a fraction of a second too slow. He had his pistol, a sleek Sig Sauer, and was bringing it to bear. A deafening blast filled the room. Volkov staggered, a look of profound shock on his face. He looked down at the spreading red stain on his white shirt. He crumpled to the floor. I turned. Sarah was standing, braced in a shooter's stance. Volkov's backup, pistol which she must have grabbed from the table smoking in her hands. Her eyes were wide with terror and adrenaline. I didn't have time to process it. "O'Malley!" I yelled. We moved into the hallway, but it was empty. A trail of blood led towards the kitchen and out the back door. One of my shots had found its mark. He was wounded, but he'd escaped. We had to move fast. I rushed to the command center and started grabbing hard drives and documents, stuffing them into a bag. My eyes fell on Volkov's phone. I scooped it up. "Sarah, we have to go. Now." We ran out the back door and into the night. We didn't stop until we were miles away, parked in the shadows of a 24-hour supermarket. I was breathing heavily, my hands shaking. I looked at Sarah. She was staring straight ahead, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "You saved my life," I said quietly. "I killed a man," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You saved my life?" I repeated with more force. "You did what you had to do. We did what we had to do." I turned my attention to Volkov's phone. It was locked with a biometric scan, useless, but I pulled out the SIM card and connected it to a portable reader on my own encrypted device. I bypassed the security and accessed the call log and messages. And there it was, the golden ticket, a series of calls and texts to a blocked number, but one that Volkov, in his arrogance, had saved under a contact name, KF. The last text, sent an hour ago, was from KF. "The asset has gone completely dark. The wife is a variable I did not account for. This is becoming a liability. Contain it, or I will be forced to activate contingency measures. KF." It was Hayes. It was proof of his communication with the hit squad. It wasn't enough for a court of law, but it was enough for the world to see. "It's time to end this," I said. Using the same dark web channels, I packaged everything. The bank records linking Hayes to Abundando, the texts from KF to Volkov, a recorded statement from me, Leo Moretti, detailing the entire conspiracy. I set it all on a digital dead man switch. If I didn't deactivate it in 24 hours, it would be sent to every major news outlet in the country, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the FBI's public tip line, and the director of the U.S. Marshal Service. Then I sent one final message, this time directly to Robert Hayes' official Justice Department email. *Hayes, this is Leo Moretti. The contingency has been activated. The data is in the wind. Your only play is to stand down. Call off the dogs. Disappear yourself. If Volkov's team or any other comes near me or my wife again, the world will know about Kingfisher. You are now the one who is exposed. You have 24 hours to prove you're smart enough to survive. We waited. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. We moved to a new motel every 6 hours. I didn't sleep. Sarah barely spoke. The weight of what she'd done was crushing her. With 4 hours left on the timer, the news broke. It wasn't our leak. It was a different story, but one I knew was connected. Deputy Director Robert Hayes of the U.S. Marshal Service has taken an unexpected leave of absence for personal reasons. He'd run. He'd gotten the message and he'd run. An hour later, my dark web monitor pinged. A message from a new, untraceable account. The contract is void. The clients have withdrawn. You are a ghost once more. Do not resurface. A friend. It was over. Frankie, or someone like him, had passed the message. The commission, faced with the exposure of their mole and the tenacity of their target, had cut their losses. I was too hot. I was free. Months later, we are in a small coastal town in Mexico. The money is almost gone, but it doesn't matter. We live in a small house with a view of the ocean. The scars are still there. Sarah still wakes up screaming sometimes. The trust between us is being rebuilt, brick by painful brick, but it's a different kind of trust now. It's not based on a lie, but on a terrible, shared truth. I am no one again. I have no name, no past, no future beyond the next sunrise. But I have her, and for the first time since I walked into Sal's diner, I'm not looking over my shoulder. The ghost has finally found his peace, not in a witness protection program, but in the quiet understanding that some battles, once fought, stay won. We are free because we chose to fight, not just run. And in the end, that made all the difference.